Drop zone approaching! Lovely day for a drive!
All right, Jones. I'm finally able to say that I've played a little bit of Forza Horizon 5.
I knew it! I wanted to say something, but sometimes I can't.
Right.
So
we've had a preview build this week just to let people know what the situation is, because it's a little, it's not the full game. So there's no online stuff going on. So any cars driving around are just drivatars.
Gotcha.
None of those
How are you accessing
the battle
this game?
royale events. They just through the Xbox just downloaded the build.
Cool.
The first half of the week they had the dry season, and then starting today they had the wet season. So I just went around and drove around a little bit with the wet season, and it's roughly, they say, about the first hour to hour and a half of the campaign, depending on how much time you screw around and explore and stuff like that. I was also they have both a graphics and performance mode. I don't know what person will want to play with the graphics mode, but there you go. Everything captured here is captured in performance. Once Forza Horizon made that leap to 60 frames per second, I'm not going back. I'm sorry. But I think ray tracing's only in the Forza Vista mode anyways.
Oh.
So
Is that a separate thing, or is that a mode in this?
Forza Vista is just when you're walking around the car and looking at it in super
Gotcha.
detail. So I didn't even mess with that in here at all. Opening cinematic they're saving for later, and the track list they're saving for later. So we'll have to cut around any titles that pop up and just use some library music.
Oh, okay.
But when it starts off with basically the same thing they showed us at E3. So it's basically people coming into the festival and they're dropping cars out of a plane.
Cool.
And so you just drop in on the volcano and you drive one car for a bit, and then you drop in. One car has to drive through the dust storm. There's another car that goes through more of a jungle area, and then there's a car that goes kind of along the beach and into the festival, and that's supposedly your character. It's funny, they have you create a character, and you actually can see the character quite a bit depending on which camera angle you pick. If you're driving cockpit all the time, you won't really, but if you look at replays or if you're looking in third person or depending on certain cars, you will see your character model. But it's funny because there's a whole grid of options, and I feel like the thumbnails for them look okay, but then the character model itself, they all look terrible. So okay, whatever you want to do.
Who's gonna ding that in a review score?
Right,
you know
right.
what I mean? Who's gonna remember that after 30, 40, 50 hours of racing?
Right. Well, and then they also have you choose a voice, and I clicked the button thinking I was going to preview, and I clicked the wrong button, and so I just it just went with it. It's well, I don't know what voice I picked. But then when I did the second time around for the wet season, it was just like a male or female voice, essentially, is what you're picked for. And there's a point, I think before you even start, where they just have rows and rows of names or nicknames to go with. And so it's really funny because when they introduce you, there's and now everybody welcome Daniel.
Yeah, exactly.
There's just a little bit too long of a pause there. It's kind of funny.
Love that stuff.
But with the voice, picking the voice, what was funny is because I kind of, sometimes I'm not sure, do I go with just a totally different character? Do I try to make somebody who looks like myself or not? So I made somebody look more like myself for this preview build. And then I didn't realize, I don't know if Forza's had you talk before, but you actually do talk back to the other characters this time around. And as soon as I opened my mouth, I was like, oh, okay. The idea that this is me is kind of went out the window. It's just total British voice.
I believe this is yours. How was your flight?
Not bad. Exit procedure was a bit rough.
Yeah, I bet. Come on.
So
It's a variant. It's you in
yeah.
another dimension. It's
Yeah.
you. There, you move to the UK, got it really hardcore into the racing scene, the real racing scene.
First three cars that you pick from, they're all available to swap out, but when they have them, they're presented to you. There's a Corvette Stingray, There's a yellow Ford Bronco, and then there's a Toyota Supra. And then they still have you do a little bit. It's not as extended as them going through all the seasons and stuff in the previous game. But they still have you do a couple of things that you're kind of locked into before you get into the open world. So there's one showcase event that you do where you're racing through town against some motorcycles. And then at the end, one of the guys driving a motorcycle goes off a ramp and just like ditches his motorcycle and is like in a wingsuit. It's like, okay,
Yeah.
cool. So showcase events, they're always funny to me because they're trying to be ultra flashy,
Right.
and do like these crazy. Hey, did you hear about that? But they're never hard. And it's like this is like
yeah.
everything is like synced up for me to get across the finish line like right before.
Because they want to kill the momentum. You know,
Right,
they
right,
really
right.
want you the satisfaction of having done it all in one trip. Yeah, that is a weird. I mean, maybe in one game, you know, you can still be kind of charmed by it, but like how many times? That's kind of their
Right.
MO now. Is that a Horizon MO or is that like a Forza thing?
No, it's totally a Horizon thing. Yeah. The other motorsport is more sim.
So do you just kind of enjoy them and chuckle, or do you?
Yeah,
do you
it's just sort of it's kind of just like a checkpoint along the way. You know, it's sort of like one of the benchmarks. You know, they don't have a ton of that kind of thing, and some of them are cool. I remember when you like raced a train or something at one point, and
Cool.
you know, and that could be pretty fun. But there's just times where you just kind of see them like almost like manipulating where things are gonna be. It's like they're gonna make sure you win, unless you do really bad. The next thing that you do is interesting because they're like these kind of story paths, and Ford did this as well. Where I remember there's like some guy who would have you like do shots for, you know, like he was like a movie production guy or something. So here you actually had a choice between two story paths, and then afterwards, I don't know when the other one would pop up again because it wasn't available after I picked. So maybe after you go and do some other stuff, the other story path will open up. But there was one where they wanted you to drive into the dust storm and take a photo, and I did that the first time around, and it was pretty fun to drive around through there. And then I got to the photo point like right as I bashed through like a bunch of brush. And so to me, it's like, this is perfect because there's just like stuff flying in the air in the middle of the dust storm. It's
Cool.
Like, yes. The other one, and they're both kind of introducing like, you know, mechanics, right? So that one's introducing photographs. And the other one was introducing the barn find system. And you meet up with this woman and she talks about like her grandfather or great-grandfather, something like that, how he had this old car, this old beat-up Beetle. And you kind of get into like the significance of the Beetle culturally in Mexico and how everyone kind of has one. And so then you get up to the barn find. And I don't know if it's just for this story quest or if you'll do this in other parts of the game. After finding it, usually in the past games, it would just kind of cut to black and your handler was like, all right, you know, I'm going to pick it up and I'll let you know when it's ready, et cetera, et cetera. This time I'm driving the truck with the car strapped on the back.
Oh, cool.
Yeah, and just taking it to wherever we're going. And so it's really funny to like drive this huge flatbed through the rain, and it's like not very wieldy, but
Sure.
you know, that's what it is.
That's cool.
So that was cool. But then after you do that, then it unlocks the map, and there's a few events for you to do. Basically, where the cutoff point for the preview is when you essentially you accumulate enough points that they say, hey, okay, we're going to give you your first house. And then as soon as you get to where the first house is, then
Does the beginning up to that point seem on par with other Forza Horizons? You know, just in terms of like
I
the scope
wanna
of the campaign
say-
and the world too. Like,
I want to say it's quicker to get through that kind of introductory stuff. And then, yeah, you're sort of let loose. There's a small pocket of where the events are. And they had a good mix of things there. There's some circuit races, which are, you know, more road based and, you know, driving, you know, not quite a sim style as, you know, like the main motorsport series, but, you know, you're on the road and you're not, you know, bouncing over a lot of jumps or anything like that. But then they do have the off-road cross-country courses, which are really like just bounding over fields and through trees and
I love that stuff.
and getting around through all of that. And then there was some of the side activities like the speed traps. You're kind of typical like at the end of the runway, so you just like get all the way down that runway,
Yay.
go all the way back, and try to hit that jump as far as you can. There's a race there too. I was going around trying to hit those. They have the Smashboard things, for XP and for fast travel stuff. One thing that's fun, because I was playing with the music off, and I don't know if they've done this before, but I don't remember. The boards actually play music when you're close to them.
Okay, yeah.
So if you're searching and you're like having a hard time figuring out where things are, like if you just turn the music off, you'll hear when one's close.
Oh, cool.
So that's fun, because there'd be times where I'd be driving around just messing around and like I'd hear it, like where is it? It's in that pipe. Got it. There was another kind of like little side activity called a Trailblazer, where you go through one gate and then you have to get to the other gate like as fast as you can.
Right. Cool.
And there's not like a set route or anything. You just go through it. Yeah. After I did enough races and they, said, the house was available, then I just kind of started wandering around the map, because I knew it's like as soon as I go to my house, it's over. So,
Clever.
and so I was driving around. I went down to like the beach, and there's these big, cool like volcanic plug type rocks, that you can drive around there. And from the beach, you can actually see the volcano in the distance, so that's kind of a cool shot. And then you go up into kind of the hills and the mountains, and there's this foresty area. I went through the town for a bit, and what I was appreciating about the town is that even though they've all got them kind of fenced off, there are actually a lot of like people just hanging around on the side of town. And like touristy areas felt like they're a little bit busier, and
I love that
thing.
stuff. That goes a long way with me. Yeah, it's like just making the
parks,
the place feel lived in, and it gives scope to like the size of your car in relation to the size of the world, and it's cool.
Yeah, and one thing which was in 4 that they brought back here too is they have that kind of like Spider-Man style where it's it's not really 3D, but you look into buildings and it looks like there's a 3D interior in there. And so that's really nice to kind of like flesh out the world a bit. I kept driving around, basically tried to do like just a big loop around the map, and got into some jungle, got into some like more resort beach kind of areas. As I was out there long enough for the day-night cycle to start going through, so I was able to see some like sunset and some dark. And then there were a couple of times where I got into around like some of like the ruins, like Mayan temples and things. And they just have them lit up really well, and there's this big ramp. It's like, all right. and then I found one of the bonus boards inside of one too. So it's nice to just like drive into it and like see what's there. Oh, one thing that was nice when I was around the dunes and the beach earlier is I saw there's a little bit more terrain deformation, so that, like you can kind of see the sand move a bit behind your car, and nothing like super groundbreaking or anything, but I remember feeling at times like Forza needs a little bit more of that.
Well, I imagine with all of the like photorealistic games that you play and cover, it's like those gains are small and in some cases like very specific. Like one racing game where like we're all about weather, one racing game's like we're all about tires, like we're all about damage. And so it's neat to have you pick up those tiny details. I
didn't really see any like major weather changes. I didn't see it like pour down rain or anything like that. But like I said, I went back and checked out the wet season, and it's hard because like with England, like the seasons are so distinct. It's like this is white, this is pink, this is orange, this is green. So and with this, I was like, am I seeing it yet? It also makes it a little harder because some of the events, like they'll just automatically like be set in either wet or dry season. So even if you're in the dry season and you go to a certain event, it will be wet just because that's how the event's set up. But as I was driving around enough, I was like, okay, like it does look a little greener. Like these areas, there's like a bunch of purple flowers and fields and things like that. And so it's like, okay, like I'm starting to see it. It's not as drastic, but it's definitely there. And I imagine that even though I didn't encounter any rain, like that's just part of the world. Like that'll happen more often, and you'll get into. I got into a little bit like muddy areas and things like that, but they weren't like super crazy muddy. But yeah, it's fun to explore. It's hard to say since I have such a limited slice, like the very beginning of the game, and like none of the online stuff turned on. But so far it's good, but it feels it feels familiar. You know, it doesn't feel like that kind of like big leap up that 4 made with introducing the seasons and all of that. It just kind of feels like, okay, here's the groundwork, here's a new location, and it's, you know, everything that you like about Forza Horizon. But so far, not really seeing a whole lot new other than, you know, just a new map to explore.
For not being very focused on the Forza franchise of all the Forza releases, like they definitely toss games out quicker than I am expecting them to. Like, there's sometimes I'm like, yeah, maybe they're gonna skip this year. Maybe they're like, no, we are.
Well, I think they did take an extra year for 5.
Okay. It doesn't feel that way. Again,
Yeah.
as somebody who's not like that, you know, immersed and doesn't follow it that carefully. So does this feel on track still, though, even with like online stuff not having access in terms of like the development of other Forza games and, you know, where they are at potentially at this point, just in the past? Are you like, yeah, this is kind of locked in terms of what to expect from them?
Yeah, well, like I said, I think they are taking more time now. You know, the Forza Motorsport, still, we don't know when that's coming, really. So they're really retooling that. And this one, I think they took a little bit more time with. They did put out those DLCs, I think 2 or 3 of them for 4, you know, including the Lego one, which was really fun. But yeah, I think it's on track. I'm curious to see what else is in the final game. It's good. It's like I said, there's not really, this isn't a surprise to me. It's like I know the formula so well.
Yeah.
And I will definitely be digging around. Like I was already like, it's like having to tell myself, like, no, don't worry about the bonus boards. It's not gonna matter.
Yeah.
You're gonna do this again in like 3 weeks. Just wait.
Was an open world fan playing games, you know, Just Cause, Grand Theft Auto, Assassin's Creed, like.
Yeah.
I definitely get the vibe of like, well, here we go again. You know,
Yeah.
it's like
And I was coming across places where like I came across this big like dirt racetrack and like, okay, there's gonna be a cool event here, and like that place with the temples, like this is gonna be a multiplayer mode map.
Sure.
Like this is just prime, because that's one of the things I do love about Horizon is that it does hit all of these different points really well. And like, you know, they make multiplayer arenas for those weird modes that actually make sense and feel good. And same thing with open world. It's like it feels good to get around and explore the open world. So,
And how far away are we?
beginning of November, I think. Yeah.
Okay.
So just about a month.
All right. Thank you, Blood.